Good evening, Mason. Good morning, Mason. Good afternoon, Mason. My name is Ryan. I'm VP of Sales and Marketing. I'm here today to talk to you about a few things that are fun and awesome that happened in Q1 and take a look into what's going to happen in the future and the rest of this year. But first, before we go further, let's take a look at our sales force. You'll see this map to this side of my head. That's the United States. That was a test. We have 3 sales folks. They cover the country and the world. So kind of think of dividing the country into 3. On the West Coast, we have a mixture between Clay, who has California, and Devin, who has Washington. So Devin has Fleer, Boeing Commercial. Clay looks after Lockheed Palmdale, where they do secret skunk works kind of stuff, and a bunch of components customers that are down in this area. The middle part of the country is more or less Devin, because our customers are focused in the Texas area, and that's where Devin hasn't traveled yet, is aching to go. We have the likes of Elbit, Lockheed, a bunch of other smaller customers as well in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then on the East Coast, Clay kind of has the Southeast, from the Southeast. I mean, just listen to him talk, he has to have that territory. Really helps us out. He has customers like Lockheed in the north part of Florida, Lockheed in Orlando, and a really big one is Huntsville. We do a lot of work with Huntsville companies like SES, Ulista, DLA directly. So he spends a lot of time on the phone. That's why he gets in so early, to get him on the phone and chew the fat for a bit before I get in and knock his head together to get some orders in. Above him, Janice has got the Northeast. Janice has been with us since June, beginning of June just about. So she has some pretty chunky accounts up there because some of our larger customers are up in that area. Lockheed Owego, Sikorsky, big one there. Kongsberg in Pennsylvania. There's some BAE locations out there. So she has herself busy manning the phones while she's been with us so far. So next, in sales and marketing, who are we? What do we do? Well, you probably see a lot of us running around the building, from CSRs to bums to proposals, and there's a lot of us. This is what we look like in an org chart. This is the best chart I've ever made in my entire career. It took me 6 hours. It's incredibly difficult to make an org chart. We work really well together. I love the team. We have some awesome dynamic. We have a lot of fun on the front end, bringing in new work. But there may be some things you don't know about some of these people. So for 3 of them, I have a cool fact that's really fun to know. First is Christy. So Christy works in customer service. She started about a year ago, I think. Maybe it was 2 years. Feels like 10. That's a good thing, Christy. It means you're doing a lot of good work. Christy, when she's not at work, loves to bake. So she bakes something called a cakesicle, which I had never heard of. I'm more of a Skittles kind of person, but it sounds delicious, and I Googled it, and it looks really good. So if you have any questions about baking, or maybe you want to go talk to her about making something for you, that's what I'm going to go try and do. Go talk to Christy. Next, Teresa up in proposals. So Teresa manages all the proposals, keeps all of us in line, marching down towards the deliverable date. Especially keeps me in line, because I can sometimes go off the rails a little bit. Teresa is from Ohio, a tiny small town called Piketon. Why is that cool? Ohio's cool, but why is Piketon cool? I got an answer for you. Piketon is about 5 miles south of the biggest and the only plant in the United States that made, up until the early 2000s, weapons-grade plutonium and uranium. Get out! How cool is that? Her dad actually spent his entire career there. She told me she showed him the Google Maps, the Google Earth view of the plant, and when he saw it, he was so shocked, he was so surprised, because his entire career was secret, 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 and seeing it from the Earth, he's like, no, close the browser, you can't do that. So, super cool story, I love it. Last, Janice. So Janice, remember, Northeast Sales, Sikorsky, Lockheed, that kind of thing, is cold most of the year. Really interesting thing about her, she's actually the great-granddaughter of Edward Rowe. Now, you're like, okay, Edward Rowe. He's in the Smithsonian, he's that important. What's interesting about him is he is the sole survivor of the only 7-masted schooner ever built in 1902. So he was an engineer on the ship. It was going from Philadelphia to London. The ship sank just off the coast of London, and he's the only guy who survived. Thank goodness, otherwise Janice wouldn't be here with us today. And she tells me that she's convinced if he had been using Mason controls, the ship would not have sunk. How about that? So next I'm going to talk about something that's very important for our future as a business. 3 letters. Future Vertical Lift. That acronym is a program for the military to replace a lot of their helicopters over the next 10 to 15 years. OH-58 Kiowas, Apaches, Chinooks, Blackhawks, platforms that we have a lot of content on. The FVL, or Future Vertical Lift, is something that's going to propel Mason forward for the next 20, 30, maybe even 60 years, because we're going to be making these platforms for decades. There's two programs we're chasing right now, along with our customers who are competing. Sikorsky and Bell are the two big competitors for both programs. The first of these is the FARA, the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft. Now, looks pretty cool. I like them both. I'll take two, Mr. Government. We're working with both customers, and we bid things like cyclics, collectives, potato grips, sweet potato grips, components, even a collective trim actuator. So we're very engaged, and we're looking forward to continue to do some R&D and develop second source options for our customers. The next variant is called the FLRAA, F-L-R-A-A, the Future Long Range Assault Aircraft. So also, super cool aircraft. You should actually go Google FLRAA flying in Florida, because there's a phenomenal video that Sikorsky did with the FARA and the FLRAA, their Raider X and the Defiant X, flying together, and they go so fast. It's awesome. Same story, bidding all of our core content, really in with both customers, and looking forward to having some positive news maybe in the next year as the program ramps up further. The next thing I'm going to talk about is one of our most important customers. Now you may be thinking I'm going to talk about Sikorsky, Boeing, BAE, all very important customers, to be sure. But one of our most important customers that's in that same grouping is the government. The reason the government is so important to us is twofold. One is because the products we sell to the government, all of our grips, the components that go into those grips, those all go to the Defense Logistics Agency, or DLA. And they send those out to troops around the world, to aircraft around the world, to keep them safe, to keep them flying, and to get them to come home. That's really the number one reason why they're one of our biggest customers and most important customers. The second reason is that we also do quite a bit of sales to them. So they're really important to us for our fiscal year. Now, the DLA is a tough customer. They want a fair price. And we spend a lot of time and a lot of work justifying our pricing, using market comparisons, commerciality packages, having many conversations to help them understand the value that we bring to providing these products to the warfighter. We're about halfway to where we need to be for this fiscal year. We're really excited about that. We've had some great success in building up relationships with some DLA folks. However, they're tenacious, and using the DLA, having the DLA as a customer, is kind of like playing the game Plinko. If you remember the game Plinko, you put the ball on the top, it kind of falls down. And I'm that ball, and I'm blowing it down, blowing it down, blowing it down. Now, with the DLA, I'm trying to use a hairdryer at the same time to put that ball into the purchase order bucket. Give us some orders so we can get you the product that you need. And it takes a lot of work. And we have a lot of folks in the business here who are helping us do that, from engineering, customer service, from sales. And then once we get the orders, of course, the rest of you, in operations, and engineering on the floor, and quality, and shipping, everybody plays a role. But we're feeling really good about the relationships we've developed so far this year, and are looking forward to bringing in more orders as the year progresses. The last thing I'm going to talk to you all about is proposals. What's going on in the front end of the business? What are we bringing in and working on? There's three things that I'm going to bring up. The first one, which is a pretty cool one, is a long sales cycle we've been working on with one of our customers, BAE. Not the BAE that does the planes in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is the BAE that does ground vehicles in York, Pennsylvania. The components group, many years ago, well, several years ago, designed and developed a fuel selector switch for the AMPV program. The AMPV program is something that's going to replace the M113. That tank, which there was 80,000 of made, started in service in 1962 in Vietnam. We still use it today. They are deployed today around the world. So this is a really big deal to be on this program. Clay has been very dogged at following up on a quote that we sent out in June, and we're working on negotiating. We got an order, so we're about to book an order for about $700,000 for some fuel selector switches, rotary switches for the AMPV. They'll deliver in 2022, so we have plenty of lead time. Nikhil, don't worry. But we're really excited to be a part of that program. The next thing is Boeing Mesa. Jose and David Douglas and I were fortunate enough to actually get to go visit in person before COVID really took a turn for the worse in December, to go to Mesa to visit with Boeing. This was stellar. I had almost forgotten how to wear a suit. I didn't know where the airport was. It was so confusing. but I loved it. Jose actually almost missed his flight. Luckily, I called him and brought him on the plane with me. We also had David Drobnis and Lee and Bob Miles and Devin and Clay and maybe a couple others I'm forgetting in a conference room here on video. It was great. We took 8 or 9 products, we did demos, we had an active collective set up, we had a pilot, spent 2 hours on FaceTime with Drobnis, talking all sorts of stuff, got some phenomenal feedback. One of the coolest things we learned though, that kind of threw me back a minute, was they told us you need to be designing components and controls for the pilots who are today 5 years old. 5 years old. My nephew is 3. That's basically like my nephew flying a helicopter. And he's an animal. I can't picture that, but that's who we need to have in mind. Pretty interesting thought to keep in mind. The last thing is also a pretty cool thing that we're working on. I mean, we work on a lot of cool things. F-16s. So in 2016, in Colorado Springs, there was an F-16, a Thunderbird, no less. That's the special, amazing part of the Air Force. He flew over, did a pass. Obama was there speaking to cadets from the academy, came back around to land at the airport nearby, and unfortunately, something went wrong. And he inadvertently put the engine into an engine cutoff position. So the plane crashed. The pilot did a really good job bringing it down into a field. He ejected. He was fine. Nobody died, thank goodness. But they discovered through the root cause corrective action that one of the things they could do to prevent that was to add a pinky switch guard over the trigger. So nothing went wrong with our product. We make still great quality products. But now we have the opportunity to retrofit potentially the entire F-16 fleet over the next 3 to 4 years, which will be awesome. Again, back to that saving lives and protecting people and doing well for the business. So let's go, Mason.
Good afternoon, everybody. Phil Eldridge, your VP of Operations. Got a couple things I want to talk to you about today. First is performance. No good meeting can go by without thanking you all for the tremendous amount of effort we've had in on-time delivery and past dues. In fact, our on-time delivery for the last 10 of 11 months has been greater than 90%. It's surprising, but you would realize that over the last 11 years, we've never even had an average greater than 90%. In January, we look to close again at greater than 90%, which will make 11 of the last 12 months. The team are very proud of everything that you're doing out there. And this year is really a year of transition. We really need to put a wedge in place to make sure that we continue to deliver the stellar results that we have and not take that for granted. There's been some reduction in demand from our customers, which has helped us keep abreast of all the incoming supply that we've had. But overall, we've done a phenomenal job. And I know you can all point out areas where we can continue to improve, and we'll do that. One of the areas that we're improving this year is the ERP system. So I ask that all of you really get involved and participate as your leaders ask you to. Do the dry runs, the conference room pilots, and focus on leveraging that tool to make Mason a better place. This is really the leverage we have to put new and modern technologies into the things that we've been doing in the past that have been anchors for our business. The other thing I'd like to emphasize for you is investment. Over the past several years, you've seen challenges in us getting new equipment, new tools, new software, new anything. This year alone, we're putting $1.7 million of new equipment into the business. That's a significant investment given the fact that our business has taken a downturn due to COVID, and we've had some significant reductions in force over the past year. The last thing I do want to talk about is COVID. I really appreciate everyone coming to work every day and dealing with this. I'm sure it hits home for all of you. It's even hit my home. It's a very tragic pandemic that the world is dealing with, and coming to work every day is increasingly more difficult as you read the news and watch the media. I can tell you that Mason is doing very, very well. Our positivity rate is much lower than our peer companies, not only in the greater Los Angeles area, but throughout all of TransDigm. That is because of all of you practicing safe practices in your home and in your workplace, following social distancing guidelines, and really trying to make Mason our second home. So thank you very much for all of your effort this year so far. Looking forward to having an awesome 2021, and good luck to all of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gillian Skies, the HR Director. I want to echo some of the points that Phil made. COVID has been consuming all of our lives for almost 12 months now, and I know how hard it's been. It's really hard sometimes just to come into work, especially after the weekend. But I want to thank everybody for all of their efforts that they've been putting in, especially around the safety protocols. We introduced the testing recently. We had our third round of testing this week. I know it's been somewhat invasive. There's been lots of forms, lots of personal data has been asked for. But let's remember the reason that we're doing this. This is to keep everybody safe. It's an additional safety protocol that we have on top of our masks, on top of our social distancing. And it's really important that we all take part in this testing. And I appreciate everybody's efforts. And I know it hasn't been as smooth as we would have liked over the last week, but we're definitely making improvements. So thank you. It's also important during this time that we remain vigilant. I mentioned the safety protocols. They're very, very important to us. But we also want to try and enjoy ourselves whilst we're at work. It's very important that we don't get that COVID fatigue that's been spoken about. We do want to have fun. We're trying our best to incorporate some fun games that you might have seen outside HR, and we're going to have one of those every month going forward. So thanks to Cami for organising that. The last thing I want to say on this topic is let's all remember to be kind. It's a very challenging and difficult year, but one of the phrases that I really like is, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. I'd now like to take the opportunity to introduce our new hires. The aerospace industry has been going through a tough time over the last 12 months, but Mason is doing really well. We heard Ryan speak earlier about the new business that him and his team are working on. And we too, we're hiring. So here are some of the new hires that we have within the business over the last few months. Tim Brenham, he works in the machine shop as a CNC programmer. We had Abraham Lopez, not such a new face, rejoin us in the machine shop as their supervisor. We have Sarah Varta, who joined our quality team as a supplier quality engineer. We had Andreas Rezensi, who joined us as an engineer for our components team. I'm really sorry if I butchered your name. We have Nancy Loera, who joined us as a payroll specialist. Very important position, very important lady. And finally, we had Ricardo Arcus, who joined us in our machine shop as a manufacturing engineer. A lot of new hires in the machine shop. Welcome to everybody. On a last note, it's hard to believe that we're through January. Where does time go? Just a fun fact about me, I spent a lot of time in January learning how to ride a dirt bike. I never thought that I would, one, be in front of this camera presenting to all of you, but two, learning to ride a motorbike that my husband very kindly, I think, bought me for Christmas. So yeah, if anybody wants to see any pictures or video, I do have some evidence. But thank you. Thanks to everybody for all of their efforts. We heard from Ryan about the great work that his team are doing to ensure that we have a successful year and a successful future. And again from Phil about our results, our on-time delivery. We're doing really well. So let's continue. Let's not get this COVID fatigue. Let's ensure that we keep this testing, we maintain our social distancing, and we all pull together to make Mason the great place that it is.